Welcome back to our channel. The rain had turned to a downpour, drumming against the roof like a restless heartbeat. Kat stood motionless at the threshold, the familiar scent of the house pulling her into a flood of memories she wished she could drown. Every corner of the living room seemed to echo laughter that once belonged to warmth, not deceit. But now, that laughter, faint, muffled, haunting, came from behind a door slightly ajar. She stepped forward, each footfall heavy with dread. The dim glow spilling through the crack of the door revealed fragments of something she wasn't meant to see. And then, there it was. Eva's delicate hand resting on Ted's shoulder, the intimacy of the gesture slicing through Kat's chest like glass. The way Eva looked at him, eyes shining with a mix of innocence and revelation, and that single word, "Father," cut the air like thunder. It wasn't the word itself, but the truth it carried. A truth hidden, buried, and now unleashed like poison. Kat felt her pulse seize, her breath shorten. Everything she believed about Ted, about their fragile family balance, came crashing down. She wanted to scream, to shatter something, to rewind the moment before she had walked through that door. But the silence that followed was worse. Heavy. Suffocating. Absolute. She turned away, tears dissolving into the sound of rain hammering against the windows. Behind her, the family photo fell from the mantel, its glass splintering across the hardwood floor. A sound sharp and final. In the reflection of its broken shards, Ted stood frozen in shame, and Eva trembled in confusion. The house itself seemed to recoil, as though even its walls couldn't bear to witness the truth laid bare. Upstairs, another storm was breaking. Martin's voice, no longer calm, no longer rational, had been swallowed by the chaos inside him. He stood before the scene like a man staring into the aftermath of a crime. Samantha's clothes disheveled, Nathan's guilty stare, the discarded condom wrapper, a grotesque proof of everything Martin refused to believe about his daughter. For a long moment, he didn't move. The world slowed. His pulse thudded in his ears, not as sound, but as violence restrained. All his life, he had controlled things, his family, his business, his emotions. But now, control had become mockery. He felt stripped, humiliated, the perfect father reduced to an impotent witness of his own failure. He could feel the burn in his chest spreading upward, choking him, consuming the image he had spent years constructing. He grabbed the edge of the desk and hurled it aside. Books, papers, and glass rained down. The noise didn't help, it only amplified the void inside him. Samantha's tears blurred before him, but they brought no comfort, no redemption. They were merely echoes of his shame. Martin's hands trembled, part rage, part despair, as he sank into the chair, burying his face in his palms. He didn't cry. He couldn't. His grief had curdled into fury too dense to break. Downstairs, Kat stepped out into the storm, the world blurring behind the curtain of rain. She walked aimlessly, her shoes sinking into the mud of the driveway. Each drop on her skin felt like penance, cold, relentless. She clutched her phone, the message still glowing faintly on the screen, the unsent confession about Ted's lies, about Eva's real bloodline, about the secret he had sworn to bury forever. Her thumb hovered over the send button. Her breath hitched. She imagined Ted reading it, his mask of calm dissolving into panic, the family burning in the aftermath. But then she saw herself in the reflection of the car window, eyes hollow, lips trembling, and she knew revenge had lost its meaning. There was no satisfaction in destruction when everything had already fallen apart. Slowly, she erased the words and locked the screen. The rain swallowed her tears before they could fall. In the other wing of the mansion, Samantha sat on the floor, her back against the wall, staring at nothing. Her sobs had stopped, what replaced them was a numbness she couldn't name. The walls of her room seemed to close in, suffocating her with the memory of Martin's glare, Nathan's silence, and her own mistake, a mistake that now defined her. She reached for her coat and left. The house she arrived at, Nicole and Smitty's, offered no comfort. The air was thick with tension, their eyes sharp, assessing. Nicole poured a drink but didn't hand it to her. Smitty said nothing, just watched, calculating. Samantha understood. She was no longer someone to protect. She was leverage, another secret, another card to play in the tangled game of their ambitions. Her stomach turned cold. For the first time, she realized there were no safe places left, no people untouched by deceit. Back at the mansion, Martin sat in the dim glow of his study. The rain outside cast wavering shadows across his face. His anger had burned itself out, leaving behind exhaustion and a deep, corrosive grief. He picked up the fallen frame from the floor. The photo inside was cracked, but the faces smiled up at him as if mocking the man he had become. Cat between Ted and Eva, Samantha in his arms, once symbols of unity, now ghostly reminders of betrayal. The clock ticked steadily, each second slicing through the silence like a blade. He thought of Cat, of her resilience, her distance. Of Ted, his charm masking cowardice. Of Eva, caught between innocence and guilt. And of Samantha, his daughter, whose choices had become his punishment. He could feel the weight of his failures pressing down like a physical force. The urge to destroy, to end everything, flickered in him like a dark whisper. Outside, Cat wandered farther into the rain-soaked street. The storm had swallowed the sky, turning the world into shades of gray. Her mind replayed the image of Eva and Ted again and again until it became unbearable. Every step felt heavier than the last. Somewhere behind her, the lights of the Richardson mansion flickered, then dimmed. Eva sat alone in her room, listening to the muffled echoes of chaos that had ripped through the house. She clutched the edge of her bed, guilt consuming her. She had never wanted this, never wanted to be the cause of another's ruin, but truth, once spoken, couldn't be undone. She stared at her trembling hands, remembering Ted's promise that the truth would set them free. It hadn't. It had caged them all. As the night deepened, each of them drifted into isolation, trapped in their own private hells. Cat by the roadside, soaked and broken. Martin in his study, the weight of silence pressing against his chest. Samantha in a stranger's house, realizing she was nothing more than a pawn. Eva in her room, her tears lost in the sound of the storm. And Ted, alone in the living room, staring at the shattered photo frame, his reflection fractured beyond recognition. When lightning tore through the clouds, its flash illuminated the mansion one last time, a brief, blinding revelation of everything that had been lost. The thunder that followed was long, heavy, almost mournful. As the storm rolled on, the great doors of the Richardson estate creaked shut. No voices followed. No one reached for another. The rain washed over the house like an unspoken eulogy. By midnight, the mansion was silent again, its windows dark, its heart hollow. The storm outside mirrored the one within, violent but cleansing, erasing what little remained of love, trust, and forgiveness. Inside, the ghosts of memory lingered, faces frozen in happier times, trapped forever behind the glass of a broken frame. The night of November 7th ended not with screams, but with surrender. In the end, it wasn't betrayal that destroyed them. It was the weight of truth, and the silence that followed it. The storm eased into a quiet drizzle as dawn crept over the horizon. The Richardson estate stood still, its walls soaked in rain and silence. Inside, the echoes of the night lingered, fragments of pain suspended in the heavy air. Cat sat in her car at the edge of the driveway, watching the house through the windshield streaked with water. The world outside seemed washed clean, but nothing inside her felt lighter. Her hands trembled around the steering wheel as she tried to breathe, but every breath brought back the image of Eva and Ted, that single, devastating truth she could never unsee. Upstairs, Martin hadn't moved from his chair. The lamp had burned out hours ago, leaving him in a dim half-light. His eyes were fixed on the broken family photo, the cracks across the glass resembling the veins of his own unraveling control. He wanted to fix things, to rebuild, but every instinct told him it was too late. Somewhere deep inside, he felt something quietly die, not love, but the illusion of it. Eva sat curled on her bed, knees to her chest, her eyes swollen and raw. The storm outside had faded, yet its echo still thundered in her mind. She replayed Ted's silence after the truth came out, the weight of his guilt pressing on her like gravity. She hadn't meant to destroy anyone. But truth had no mercy, and neither did the consequences of love built on lies. Samantha woke in a stranger's house, the air around her cold, heavy, unfamiliar. She glanced toward the window, where the rain had stopped but the sky remained gray. The faces of Nicole and Smitty flashed in her mind, their detached eyes, their quiet manipulations, and she realized she had stepped from one kind of prison into another. Kat finally started the car. The tires crunched over gravel as she drove away, not toward anything, but away from everything. Behind her, the mansion loomed like a monument to everything that had gone wrong, a place where love had turned to poison and truth had stripped everyone bare. The rain began again, soft and endless, washing over the broken glass and empty halls. By the time the sun rose fully, the storm had passed, but the damage remained, silent, irreversible, and final.